is an unspoken rule among the locals who live near the darker stretches of the Appalachian Trail. It's a rule that sounds like superstition until you're out there, miles from civilization, in the pitch black. The rule is simple. If you hear something calling out to you from the deep wood, know you didn't. And if you see something that looks like a person but moves just a little bit wrong, turn around and walk away. I learned this the hard way, and I barely made it back to my car to tell you this story. I've been an avid hiker for about 7 years. I'm not a survivalist, but I know my way around a map and compass. Last October, I decided to do a solo 3-day section hike along a remote stretch of the AT near the Tennessee-North Carolina border. It was supposed to be a way to clear my head after a rough breakup. I wanted isolation. I got exactly what I wished for, and I regret it every single day. The first day was uneventful. The green tunnel, as hikers call it, was beautiful. The leaves were turning that burnt orange color and the air was crisp. I didn't see a single soul for 8 hours. Around 5 p.m. I found a dispersed camping spot, just a flat clearing about 50 yards off the main trail, surrounded by thick rhododendrons. I set up my tent, ate some rehydrated chili, and hung my bear bag, standard procedure. As the sun went down, the woods got quiet, too quiet. Usually in the Appalachians, the nights are loud with crickets, katydids, and wind. But that night, it was like someone had hit the mute button on the entire forest. I was reading a book in my tent when I heard it. It was a whistle, not a bird, a human whistle. It was a simple 3-note tune, do, re, mi. I froze. My watch said 11:15 p.m. No hiker hikes that late without a headlamp, and I hadn't seen any lights sweeping through the trees. I waited. Silence. Then, about 30 seconds later, I heard it again. Closer. Do, re, mi. I sat up, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Hello?" I called out. "Is someone out there?" The silence that followed was heavy. It felt like the air pressure dropped. Then, from a completely different direction, maybe directly behind my tent, I heard my own voice come back to me. "Is someone out there?" But it wasn't a recording. It sounded flat, like someone trying to mimic the sound of the words without understanding the meaning of them. It was my voice, stripped of emotion, spoken with a weird metallic rasp. I grabbed my knife. I know it sounds dramatic, but every instinct in my primate brain was screaming predator. I unzipped the tent flap just an inch and shone my flashlight into the darkness. Nothing. Just the wall of trees and the swirling mist. "Look, I have a gun," I lied, shouting into the dark. "Back off." From the darkness to my left, I heard a sound that made my blood turn to ice. It was a giggle, but it sounded like a hyena trying to laugh like a teenage girl. It was wet, guttural, and wrong. Then footsteps, not the heavy crunch of boots. It sounded like bare feet slapping against the damp earth. Slap, 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 fast. I zipped the tent shut and sat in the center, knife in hand, shaking uncontrollably. The footsteps circled my tent, round and round. They were erratic, sometimes 2 feet, sometimes it sounded like 4. The breathing was loud, a wheezing, clicking sound like a deer with a punctured lung. For hours, this thing circled me. Occasionally, it would brush against the tent fabric. I could feel the pressure of something leaning against the nylon wall just inches from my back. It smelled awful, like copper and old, wet garbage. At some point around 3 a.m., the circling stopped. I didn't sleep, I just listened. When the sun finally started to bleed gray light through the trees, I packed my gear in record time. I didn't even bother taking down the tent properly, I just stuffed it into my bag. I got back on the trail, hiking fast. I just wanted to get to my car, which was parked at a trailhead about 10 miles south. For the first hour, I felt like I was being watched, but I saw nothing. I tried to convince myself it was a prank, maybe some drunk locals messing with hikers. Then I saw him. About 100 yards ahead, right in the middle of the trail, stood a man. He was facing away from me. He wore a dirty red flannel shirt and jeans that were shredded at the cuffs. He wasn't moving. "Hey!" I yelled, hoping for a normal human interaction to break the fear. "You okay?" The man didn't turn around, but his shoulders started to shake. He slowly raised his arms, but he didn't raise them like a human. He twisted them backward, at an angle that should have dislocated his shoulders, and then he turned around. His face. God, his face. It looked smooth, too smooth, like he was wearing a mask made of wax that had started to melt. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and positioned slightly too far apart. His mouth was just a black slit. He opened that black slit of a mouth and let out the sound, do-re-mi, the whistle. Then he dropped. He didn't fall. He dropped onto all fours in a movement so fluid it made me nauseous. He didn't crawl. He galloped. He came at me on his hands and feet, moving faster than any human should be able to move, his limbs snapping out at weird angles. I didn't think. I turned and ran. I dropped my pack. I didn't care about the gear. I just sprinted back the way I came, looking for a switchback that led to a service road I had seen on the map. I could hear him behind me. The slap, slap, slap of bare hands and feet hitting the dirt. The wheezing breath. He was gaining on me. I screamed, sliding down a muddy embankment, crashing through thorny bushes that tore at my face and arms. I scrambled down towards the ravine, hoping the terrain would slow him down. I hit the gravel service road and didn't stop. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like lead. I didn't hear the slapping sound anymore, but I didn't look back. I jogged for another 3 miles until I hit the main asphalt road. I flagged down a passing pickup truck. The driver, an old man named Earl, took one look at me, bloodied, wild-eyed, and panting, and told me to hop in the back. He drove me to my car. When I got to the trailhead, my car was the only one there. But something was wrong. On the driver's side window, smeared in mud and what looked like saliva, was a drawing. It wasn't a symbol or a word. It was a perfect muddy handprint, but the fingers, they were too long. They stretched halfway down the door panel. I drove home doing 90 miles an hour. I reported it to the park rangers, but I could tell they didn't really believe the creature part. They said it was probably a feral hog or a black bear, and my panic made me hallucinate the details. They said the guy in the flannel was probably just a meth addict living in the woods. Maybe they're right, but bears don't whistle, and meth addicts don't run on all fours at 20 miles an hour. I haven't gone hiking since. And sometimes late at night, when I'm lying in bed in my apartment in the city, I hear a faint sound coming from the ventilation shaft. Do-re-mi. I just turn up the TV and pray it's the wind.